Sponsored by Bamboo Lab. If the Lego Movie were made from real Lego pieces, how much would that cost to make? If we made every character, building, mountain, and cloud in real life, what would the price be? I mean, there are literally millions of Lego pieces needed to make this movie happen. If it were real life, would that be surprisingly cheap or drive you bankrupt? Well, let me tell you, the answer is not what you think. Hello Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's building theories one brick at a time. So do you guys remember the Lego Movie? If you don't, the Lego Movie is about Emmett, a regular dude navigating his Lego world with a very clear set of rules.
Step 11, greet your neighbors. Step 12, obey all traffic signs and regulations. Step 13, enjoy popular music.
However, Emmett's world is shattered when he learns that the master builders, or important and named Lego characters who can build without instructions, are being captured by the evil Lord Business and frozen in place by the Kraggle, a super glue that will keep everything frozen forever. Not gonna lie, this one really surprised me. I remember sitting in theaters with my friends in college expecting a total faceplant of a film, and instead, we got a really touching story about embracing your inner creativity and staying young at heart. And that's what Lego's about, right? I grew up making all sorts of stuff with my family and friends, playing the Lego Star Wars games, all of that jazz. It just makes me so excited that I could turn 3D! Whoa, this is a weird feeling. I feel full of childlike wonder. Anyway, doing whatever you wanted to with Lego just clicked, like two bricks snapping together. And what's even more impressive is that everything here in the Lego Movie is stuff that feels like you could do it in real life, right? Despite the movie being entirely CGI, well, you know, the Lego parts at least, the entire film was created to look like a stop-motion animation, to really make it feel like it was something you could actually do. The creators even designed everything in the movie using a program that recreated real Lego pieces, and even went into the textures to add little fingerprints, smudges, and scratches to make it all feel even more real. To feel like it was actually created with the actual toys. Which got me thinking, well, what if I did want to make this with the actual toys? What if I wanted to actually recreate the Lego Movie as a stop-motion animation? How much would that cost? Just to make the Lego stuff itself? That's what I want to find out today, loyal theorists. Though I will say I'm a bit worried about what this massive price tag is gonna be. Like, have you seen what Lego sets are going for today? Apparently the new Pokemon Lego set featuring the Kanto starters is gonna be $650. And have you seen the new Death Star set? It doesn't even look like the Death Star, it's like a metal pie. Who's dropping, wait, $1,000? This thing costs $1,000 in this economy? Honestly, with that kind of cash, you should just invest in something like a 3D printer and just make the toys yourself. Which is actually why I was super hyped when Bamboo Lab reached out wanting to partner for a video. Yeah, if you're wondering, this is why my PNG turned into this super rad 3D print of me, and the idea we landed on here is super cool. See, when Bamboo Lab heard we wanted to do a video about the Lego Movie and how much it would cost, they loved the idea. This is actually the type of really big project that takes a lot of time and man hours that we can't normally do, but with the backing of awesome partners like Bamboo Lab, we can make it happen. If you don't know, Bamboo Lab makes some of the premier desktop 3D printers out there, and really, they have the same ethos as Lego, but they take it one step further. They're all about expressing your creativity however you want, but instead of just making things out of bricks, you can make basically anything. If you can design it in a computer, you can build it. They actually sent us one of their heavy-duty H2S printers. Though they have a ton of different models and price options, there is gonna be something for everyone. And let me say, we've just had so much fun here in the office with this. Like when we were setting up the printer and testing it out, we actually printed out this little fidget toy that I can't put down. I actually pretty much have to have something to mess with in my hands during meetings or while researching, so now I have an endless supply. We also printed out this little D20 frog design from Sorrel Souls because it's just so adorable. Look, he has a butt. My figure collection is about to go crazy. Anyway, this printer was really easy to use, and that made an idea pop into my head. I could just print my own Lego here. A generic and legally distinct Lego, of course, but a Lego-like figure. So with that in mind, I wanted to set a challenge for myself. Could I go from a total 3D rookie and actually learn how to 3D print, and then print something out faster than it would take me to research this Lego Movie theory? Could I actually 3D print my very own, legally distinct, Lego Man, and this 3D model of myself you're seeing throughout this episode quicker than it would take to research just how expensive the Lego Movie would be? Let me tell you, these sorts of theories require a mountain of of research, but I also don't really know what I'm doing with this technology yet. This one is going to be a photo finish. And okay, just real quick to lay out some ground rules for this little competition here. Going in, though I was a noob when it came to the actual printing process, I wasn't completely in the dark. I've spent enough time following creators like Corridor Crew that I was familiar with the bare-bone basics of 3D printing. Still, it did take me about 5 hours of setup and testing to make sure I had everything working right, which I will be counting towards the total print time. Same thing for actually getting me 3D scanned for the print. Shoutouts to Strategic 3D Solutions here in Raleigh for helping me get that done, by the way. That took about 2 hours, so the print is already starting off with 7 hours on the clock. Can I figure out how expensive the Lego movie is going to be in that time, or is it going to take a little bit longer? Only one way to find out, loyal theorists. Get those clocks out and ready, set, go! Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do here is to try to figure out the scale of what we're working with. And since we know that the Lego movie is made entirely out of Lego bricks, no shortcuts, you might think that figuring out how many pieces are in there total is going to be a bit of a challenge. And believe me, I was prepared to stop at every scene and start counting, at least to get like a rough estimate, but thankfully getting all of that info is actually pretty easy to find. See, when designing the actual sets and landscapes for the movie, the studio used a software called the Lego Digital Designer, and because they were pretty proud of what they were able to put together, they've been super open about how much work went into this and what exactly they did. For example, the movie used a total of 3,863,484 unique pieces of Lego when designing the movie, as in they used that many differently shaped pieces. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't even aware there were that many different types of pieces. That is insane. But of course, you're going to use some pieces more than others. Like your basic 2x3 brick is probably going to see a lot more action than something super specific and custom to one unique Lego set. And that's not even mentioning all of the minifigure characters that appear in the movie. In total, the filmmakers claim they used an insane 15,080,330 individual Lego pieces for the movie. That's a lot, and honestly, we'll need to break things down a bit if we have any hope of getting to an actual number for a price here, let alone in our time limit. So here's what we're gonna do. We'll start by figuring out what pieces we'd need for the main characters, then next for the master builders and cameos from famous sets, then for all of the background extras, and then finally for all of the generic pieces we'll need for the buildings and backgrounds. We'll see if we can find a price for all of those parts and pieces, then add it all up to see the cost of this thing. And we'll have to do all of that while trying to beat this bamboo 3D printer before it's done. This is gonna be very challenging. Oh, and just to get this out of the way, I'm aware that Lego released sets inspired by the Lego movie, but we won't be using them here. Why? Well, first of all, it's more of a challenge and that's more fun. And secondly, they couldn't use those sets at the time when they made this movie because they didn't exist. We're going to imagine that we are actually making this stuff in the early 2010s as much as we can, so just keep that in mind. Did you get all that?
I think I got it, but just in case, tell me the whole thing again, I wasn't listening.
Great! Well, the 3D printer is humming away right now, so let's get to it. First up, the minifigures, and let's start with the main characters of the movie. Surprisingly, tracking down all of these was actually the most difficult and time-consuming part of this process. Across the whole movie, there were about 183 types of minifigures used, though that's just the different variants. That actual number is way, way higher, but we'll get to that, trust me. There are also specific characters from certain franchises represented here. Think like Star Wars or Batman, and some of those can be harder to get a hold of. So let's go through the big characters one by one, shall we? Starting with our main character, Emmett. So his minifig appeared in several sets, big and small, and in blind bags made for the movie, which means that you can actually get a hold of Emmett pretty cheaply, only around $1. Though again, these were all made to tie into the Lego movie, so we won't be counting those. But believe it or not, actually buying the individual parts for his head, torso, legs, hair, and everything else you need for this minifig is way cheaper than $1. Like, I don't know if you knew this, but you can actually just buy Lego parts individually from secondhand markets. It's really nice. So getting him actually only costs just 36 cents, and every penny is gonna count here, trust me. Other main characters are just as easy and cheap to get a hold of, including Wildstyle, Ma and Pa Cop, and even Batman. I mean, we have like a billion Batman sets to choose from. Oh, and we should also mention that some characters go through changes in the movie, like Bad Cop drawing his good face back on, and Vitruvius getting blinded, so we'll need pieces for all of those different versions of those characters.
All I'm asking for is total perfection.
Obviously, that'll bump up the cost, but it's still not too much. Like, we haven't even broken a 20 yet, but we haven't hit the more complicated minifigures yet either. Like, for example, Metalbeard, the pirate master builder who lost his original body and is now a giant pirate-themed mech. We love someone who stays on brand. If we count up all of the pieces here on his mech body, including some of the more unique ones, like the shark and the cannons on his arm, that bumps up the cost to recreating Metalbeard all the way up to, gasp, $4.99. That's actually quite a bit less than I was expecting, to be honest. Oh, and just to mention it here, it also means we can knock off the 206 pieces used in his build off the final total we'll need to calculate at the end of the theory. I'm not going to mention that for every single character or set or whatever, but just know that in the background we have considered that. Now, after breaking down a giant mech pilot, you might be surprised that our next most expensive minifig isn't actually going to be something big and complicated. It's actually one of the most basic characters in the movie. This is Benny, and he was actually based on one of the director's astronaut Lego toys from the original space sets from the 1980s. Like, Benny even has like a faded chest and like a cracked helmet piece to show that he's just been loved to death. Also, fun fact, but since this movie came out, new Benny minifigs have like the crack and the faded torso on purpose. The director's gotta feel great that his love for Benny has literally changed the actual toy too. Anyway, you might be thinking, wait, this guy is basic. Why is this going to be difficult? Well, it's because he's old. Like I said, he's from the original sets in the 1980s, and this exact style of Benny is going to be a bit more difficult to get a hold of in modern sets. In fact, the helmet itself here is incredibly expensive, well, comparatively, because it was so easily damaged. That crack wasn't just for show. There's just straight up not many of these guys left, and because of that, the helmet alone costs $6.95. And in total, you're looking at $7.43 to get all of Benny. So that one's down. Who's next? Well, out of all of the main characters, this leaves us with just two. The main villain, Lord Business, and Unikitty. Why did I save them for last here in this section? Well, despite the Lego movie focusing on real Lego pieces and not making up new ones, the only places they broke that rule were with Lord Business's armor and with Unikitty. For Lord Business, they had custom pieces designed exclusively for the movie, including his helmet, chest plate, and legs. I'm assuming that they wanted him to feel like wrong or out of place, so even hardcore Lego fans would be surprised by him, you know? So technically, if we wanted to do this legit without any pieces from sets created after this movie, we couldn't. Thanks, business. But just like the movie made an exception here, we're going to as well. These pieces did appear in one set after the movie was released. So to get the full Lord Business minifig, it's gonna cost us $7.88, which leaves us with...
I am Princess Unikitty!
Yes, hello, Princess Unikitty. She was actually an original character created exclusively for the movies, so again, they had to make a couple of unique pieces for her. But believe it or not, that's not the reason this chirpy, optimistic princess costs so much. No, that's because of the sheer number of transformations she has. Like, she has her business outfit.
Business. Numbers. Is this working?
Yes.
Yay!
Her spaceship outfit, she gets seasick and angry as heck, and every one of those is gonna set us back a pretty penny. Thankfully, most of the Unikitties are just basic Lego pieces with unique faces and tails, so her outfits won't cost a ton. The main cost is actually going to be those unique faces, which appeared in the Lego movie sets that were only around for about a year before being retired. They also have a problem with color. See, not all Lego bricks are created equally. Yeah, I didn't actually know this going into this episode, but some colors actually cost more to make than others, and the most expensive colors just aren't used as much. I would just love to know the business reasoning behind this, because the colors of the filament you need for like 3D printing doesn't really have a ton of cost variance. Like, the basic filaments that Bamboo sells pretty much cost all the same no matter what the color is. It's only when you get to the like multicolored or sparkly filaments that the price starts to jump up. Anyway, for Lego, one of the pricier colors is sand green, the color used for Seasick Unikitty, thus making the sand green tail on her cost $15 alone. But hey, I guess that beats trying to buy her all together at $60, so we'll go with the cheaper option and just buy those individual parts, totaling out at $21. So altogether here, the minifigs for our main characters are gonna cost about $54.30. It also took me a couple of hours to figure all that out and track down all of that information and put it all together. Gotta say, if this is how things are gonna go for the rest of the movie, I'm gonna really need to speed things up if we're gonna beat this 3D print. Like, we're already almost through the time it took me to figure out just how to use this thing. We gotta keep moving. Okay, so obviously the main characters in the movie aren't the only named ones in the movie. There's a whole group of powerful minifigs called the Master Builders, and they include a bunch of characters from LEGO's history, historical figures, and famous fictional characters like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Milhouse, and Superman. It's an eclectic group.
My fellow Master Builders, including, but not limited to, Robin Hood, Mermaid Lady, Gandalf, Swamp Creature, 1980-something Space Guy, 2002 NBA All-Stars, and Wonder Woman.
These guys are a huge chunk of the characters in the film, and some of them can be pretty pricey, so let's dig in. Among the Master Builders are characters from blind bags made over the years, and also more unique characters found exclusively in blind bags created for the movie. We will end up counting those just like we did for Lord Business and Unikitty, just since, they were uniquely made for the film. These are relatively common and cost just between $1 and $4 each. Though I will say some of them have unique pieces, meaning they could cost just like a little bit more. Now, I expected the other characters who weren't in blind bags but were parts of older sets, like Robin Hood, Johnny Thunder, and Speed Racer, to end up costing more, but that wasn't actually the case. The biggest cost there came from Robin Hood's torso, which set us back just $6.30, but otherwise, these prices are solid. Finally, the Master Builders from recent sets are pretty cheap, as were the characters from big franchises like Milhouse, Michelangelo, the DC heroes, Gandalf, and the Green Ninja Lloyd.
It's Lloyd, Dad.
No, Lloyd. I named you.
Oh hey, it's Ninjago. We should really do a theory about that someday, shouldn't we? Surprisingly, one of the harder ones to find is actually Dumbledore.
It's pronounced Dumbledore.
Sorry, Dumbledore. Now, you might be thinking, hold up, isn't Harry Potter Lego, everywhere? How is Dumbledore gonna be hard to find? And you're right, but the movie doesn't use the Dumbledore from recent sets. See, when Lego makes sets for franchises like Star Wars or Harry Potter or whatever, every few years they'll release a new set with updated details, including improved minifigs. For example, Star Wars Legos originally had yellow faces, but they've since been updated and changed to match the character's skin tone. When new figures come out, the old ones stop being made, meaning that the older ones are much rarer, and that's exactly the case with this Dumbledore. See, the Dumbledore here in this film is actually from the 2nd edition Hogwarts set, with light purple robes. Since then, there have been 5 new versions of Hogwarts, each with new Dumbledores that don't use that robe, meaning that this Dumbledore is super rare and will set us back a massive $30.03. Similarly, though most of these Star Wars cameos are pretty easy to get a hold of, one of them's gonna be a problem.
Now hold on, Ham. This might be the right galaxy after all, because I see a heavenly body.
Yeah, for some reason they mixed and matched parts from past versions of Lego Lando, some of which have been updated or discontinued. The body for this Lando is from an older version of the minifig they don't make anymore, though you can find it online for $90. $90? His head is similar. It's from a more recent piece, but it's still rare and can go for $25 just for the head. So while Lando only has a few minutes in the film, that's gonna cost us $115. Dude, come on. Okay, so we only have a couple of Master Builders left, but tracking down all of these pieces so far has taken up way more time than I figured it would. Dude, why are they mixing and matching different sets to get what we need? That's stupid. And this printer is still wearing away. God, I can already see our little theorist-approved Lego man taking shape. We gotta keep moving. See, Lando is not the rarest or weirdest minifig in this movie. That honor actually goes to Green Lantern. Yeah, Green Lantern of all people. See, there have been a ton of lanterns throughout the years in the comics, the movies, the cartoons, and the Lego. Seriously, there have been no fewer than 7 Green Lantern minifigs over the years, with even more only appearing in video games and stuff like that. The Green Lantern here in the Lego movie is the Hal Jordan version of the character, with dark hair and a serious face in the actual Lego. But, as you can tell in the film itself, this lantern has more of a goofy face. The only way to get that goofy head is through the Green Lantern minifig from the 2nd Lego movie, which costs almost $10? Jeez, all that for a plastic head? But that's not the worst of it. See, normally Green Lantern's body is black, white, and green, but this one is different. It's all shades of green. This was actually a super rare minifig released as part of a Comic-Con raffle in 2011 to tie in with the terrible Ryan Reynolds movie. There were only about 1,500 of these ever made, and they sell for over $560 online. No thank you. Let's go the cheaper route and buy the pieces separately and build our own. But even then, just the torso costs almost $100. That's insane. Either way, we gotta buy it for the movie, so just fine, add to cart, whatever. Anyway, though this covers most of the master builders, I have to say, one of them did actually stump me for a bit.
Please, calm yourself. Michelangelo.
Yeah, so that right there is the famous artist, Michelangelo, the guy who did like the Sistine Chapel and the super famous statue of David. And as far as I could tell in my research, he's never actually had an official Lego made out of him. Like, never, ever. So we're gonna have to mix and match to make our own, and this is totally gonna eat into that time for this 3D print, dude. God. Thankfully, most of the pieces weren't too hard to track down. We need a yellow face, doesn't matter which one, because it'll be covered by this beard and this beret. Slap all that together, and that's the head taken care of. The body, though, was a bit tougher. I couldn't find anything that remotely looked like his torso online, and the best that I could do was this. It has a large wolf pattern on the front that isn't in the movie, but it'll mostly be covered up by the beard, so it's acceptable. The reddish-brown legs with light orange boots were also pretty rare, and the closest I could come up with were these brown legs. His smock with paint all over it doesn't actually exist, meaning that I had to go with a non-painted version, which is actually just a graduation gown. And finally, we also need the hammer and chisel. And after all of that, it'll cost us $10.11 to make Michelangelo from scratch, making him one of the more expensive basic minifigs out there, but also one of the most time-consuming ones to actually figure out. All in all, the master builders are gonna cost us $364.61, bringing our running total to $418.91. I'm gonna be real, I expected that number to be way higher, but my real concern here is just how much time it took to track all of that data down. Between all of the minifigs so far, this has taken me about 6 hours, completely blowing through the time it took to sit down and learn about the printer and the time it took for me to actually get scanned into the 3D printable file. We're already moving into the time it's going to take to print out what we need here. Not gonna lie, Babu's already getting me to sweat a little bit, but we gotta keep going. So, okay, that's all of the named characters that appear in the movie, but there are still dozens and dozens of different minifigs used in the rest of the film. I mean, there are tons of shots where there are hundreds and hundreds of characters on screen, doing stuff in the background, or during a big fight, or a dance number, or whatever. At first, I was hoping that the filmmakers noted just how many minifigs they used, like they did with the other aspects of the film, but sadly, I couldn't find any of that information. So we were gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. We were gonna have to sit down and count these by hand. And what's worse, by doing that, there is no way for us to tell whether or not a character in the background was the same as in another scene, and therefore can be reused. So just to make things as fair as I can, every single minifig we're counting here is going to count as a new character. You almost certainly wouldn't need to do this if you were making this movie IRL with stop motion, but you know, we're playing it straight, don't worry about it. And let me tell you, loyal theorists, this process was mind-numbing. In just the first 10 minutes of the movie, I counted around 1,000 minifigs. The big fight at the end was also chaotic as all heck and just so difficult to count. And then there was this scene, which had so many characters that they stretched out into the background and got so blurry I couldn't tell what was what. I could pretty easily count 15 by 15 rows on either side of Lord Business here, but it stretches on further into the background, so I just decided to make it 15 by 30 to be safe. Regardless, by the end of things, I counted up a total of 3,179 total minifigs in the entire movie, mostly just in the background as generic extras. Now, knowing exactly what type of minifigs these were was going to be challenging. Impossible, in fact. So instead, I decided the best thing would be to try to be as generic as I could with all of these, while also going for a bit of variety. But thankfully, getting a hold of a lot of minifigs isn't actually all that difficult. In fact, people sell this stuff in bulk for about $300 for 100 minifigs. Doing some basic math there, we'll need to buy 31.32 of these lots, totaling out to roughly $9,396. Again, honestly, not as big of a price as I was expecting. Put that together with the rest of the main cast, $55.80, and the master builders, $364.61, and that's a total of $9,816.41 for all the minifigures in the whole movie. Counting all these things also took me about another 5 hours of solid work, pausing and counting up all the minifigs, and as you can tell here, print here in the bamboo has come a long way in that time. We are quickly running out the clock, man. I'm really not sure we're gonna be able to beat this thing. Thankfully, despite not being a ton of the Lego pieces, figuring out all of the minifigs is the lion's share of the actual work that's going to be needed here to work out the price. But we're still not quite done yet. Now we have to get the bricks for the rest of the movie. But before we get to calculating the massive number of just normal bricks and their cost here in the film, there's one last thing we need to do, and that's to see what specific sets we can find. Like, going into the film, I kind of expected to see a lot of actual real-world sets, right? For whatever reason, I remember there being like castles and spaceships and the like, and surely there were going to be stuff like Hogwarts or like something from Lord of the Rings or, you know, just something like that. But honestly, there's only really one set here in the movie. Like, okay, sure, there's a scene where Wild Style references a few of the Lego worlds.
There's also this one, Pirates Cove, Knights Club, Vikings Landing, Clown Town, a bunch of others we don't need to mention.
Shoutouts to Bionicles, by the way, that was my jam growing up. But after going back and rewatching this scene, we don't need to include any of these. Notice how the actual pieces of the sets aren't here in the movie? We just see art from the sets, stuff that would have been on the boxes or ads, not the actual bricks. So we don't need to include them, and if we're making this movie by hand, we can just print that out, baby. So, okay then, what's the one set we do need to talk about? Well, clearly, it's the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. I mean, this is probably one of the most iconic Lego sets ever, and definitely only showed up to remind kids, hey, we have Star Wars Lego, go buy them. Now, there have been a few Lego Millennium Falcons over the years, but based on when this came out, and just how big it is compared to Han and Lando sitting inside of it, I'm gonna say that this is the Millennium Falcon from 2011. This was a playset rather than a big collector's item, and online it sells for about $65. But that's if you buy the whole set in box. If we really wanted to, we can actually find every single brick and buy them independently. And because I'm crazy, we're gonna do that. So if you buy up all the bricks alone without the fancy packaging, this thing only comes out to $11.59. That's an 82.17% savings, and you would be absolutely insane to do that. So don't. Just don't. Okay, so now we need to get to the real meat and potatoes here, the rest of the 15 million Lego pieces that make up the rest of the movie. Now, to be exact, like I said earlier, we're actually going to take away all of the pieces used in the minifigs and the Millennium Falcon, but that still leaves us with a total of 15,078,810 pieces we need to buy. But again, just like the minifigs in bulk, this shouldn't be too hard to figure out. See, there was no way we were going to be able to track down exactly which bricks were used, where, and how many, and all of that jazz. Trust me, our writing team and I talked about it, but the sheer amount of time, manpower, and just guesswork that would be required meant that we were going to have to figure out a different method here. So, what exactly did we land on? Well, based on the parts of the film where the team and I did try to break down what pieces we could find, we noticed that the movie seemed to be using basic pieces wherever they could, rather than large pieces to make things. For example, the sails on Metalbeard ships are entirely made of smaller Lego pieces rather than something large, complicated, and custom made for the movie. Like, the filmmakers were clearly trying to go for detail here, right? So we decided that our best bet was going to try to find this many pieces in bulk. And I mean in bulk. That should make things easier, but what are the prices of this gonna look like? Well, to start out with, the largest box of Lego that the company itself offers is the classic creative brick box containing 790 pieces at $59.99. So in order to get all of the pieces we need, we'd have to buy 19,087 of those boxes. Easy peasy. And that would total at about, $1,145,035.20. That's a lot. Are there any other options that might be a little cheaper? Thankfully, there are. Lots of people are selling Lego in bulk on eBay for as many as 1,000 pieces for just $36. At that rate, we need to buy 15,080 of those sorts of lots, which would cost about $542,891.88. Still a lot, but hey, way more reasonable. But believe it or not, there's an even cheaper option still. See, as I've researched this episode, I've come to the realization that individual Lego bricks are actually not all that expensive. Most just cost like a penny or two. Next to nothing. It's only when you get into these specific pieces, or larger sets, or branded things, or things that only came in specific sets, where things actually start to get pricey. So, if we were to be the worst Lego customer in history, we could just buy all of the bricks individually for like 2 cents a piece. And all of a sudden, that 15 million pieces will cost us just $301,000 $1,576.20. Just a couple $100,000. Jeez, man. But with that now done, let's call time. So before I reveal the final total for the Lego movie, how's the print in the Bamboo Lab going? Oh, yep, okay, they're done. Let's compare time, shall we? Overall, it took me 32 hours to research and write everything in this script. Man, tracking down every piece used in the minifig, the different sets that were used, counting the background extras, and just calculating the price of the bricks really added up over time. This seriously was like over a week of work straight. So put that 32 hours on the board. On the other side of things, in the end, adding on the 2 hours it took me to get scanned and the 5 hours of setup and learning how to actually run things with the printer, printing out our simple not Lego man took about 3 hours and the big PNG model of me took just over 20. It was a much bigger print with more complicated surfaces and parts. That's why it took so long. So add that all up and that's just over 30 hours. The Bamboo Lab print just barely won here, but hey, I'm not super surprised given just how much work it was tracking down everything in the Lego movie. Speaking of, our final number here for the price of the Lego movie after all of that work and research, drumroll please, $311,404.20. To be fair, that's not nearly as much as I was scared it would be. I was expecting a couple million at the very least, and it's also way below the movie's production budget of $60 million. But hey, that would still be a lot of cash to drop on this ridiculous project. And just think of how much your feet would hurt if you stepped on just one of those Lego pieces. I mean this in all sincerity when I say that sort of cash would be better spent investing in one of Bamboo Lab's printers because of all the crazy awesome stuff you can make with it. And while yes, that is a segue for us to once again thank them for reaching out and sponsoring this episode, I'm also being completely serious. I love this thing and will absolutely be printing out more stuff with it. Go follow me on Instagram at Forrest First if you want to follow along there with that. Seriously, Bamboo Labs have been amazing partners here, and if you have any ideas that you want to see come to life, please go check out their printers by going to bamboolab.com or using the link in the description. You will not regret it. But with all that said, remember that it's all just a theory. A film theory. And cut.